I'm going to show you how to install the software, so the mind-body training tools biofeedback software. Now if you've rented, the software will be provided on a USB memory stick. Now I'll say at this point, this stick, it's not just a memory stick, but it's also a licensed dongle, which means that whenever you run the software you need to have it connected to your computer through a USB port. Now I have one here. I'm going to connect it now. There we go. So these are the contents of the drive. This set of files is on the drive. A couple of things to say at this point. The first point is that if you've bought the software and if you've downloaded the software, then you need to have a set of files that's basically the same as this, collected into one place. That's so that the installation process can work properly. And the second thing to mention at this point is that one of these files is a document called the Installation and Setup Guide. It's a PDF document and it really covers the same content as this video. So it shows you step by step how to run an installation and also how to even uninstall the software and reinstall it if you want. So there's more detail in that document. I would say that if you have any problems with the installation process, that's the place to go. Okay, now the easiest way to install the software is to use the automated installation script, which is here. It's called mbtt_installation.bat. So it's technically a Windows batch file. So when I run that file, it's just going to go through the steps of the installation automatically in sequence. I'll just explain what they are now ahead of time. So there are really three main steps to the installation. So there are two programs to install. The first one is called the platform program, and the platform is a sort of front end to the suite of biofeedback applications. What it does, it sort of organizes and manages your biofeedback sessions and the data that the sessions generate, and also it manages reports and things like that. And it's always your starting point when you run a biofeedback session. So that's the platform, that's the first program. The second program, or the second step of the installation, is a program called BioEra, which is a third-party software. It's something that I used to develop the individual applications. So we need to install BioEra. And then the third step of the installation is to copy a set of files from the USB memory stick onto your computer. So these files are just to do with BioEra. They make up the individual applications. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and install the software by running the mbtt installation script. So I'm double clicking on it. So the first thing you see is this little black window pops up. That's part of the script. And it's going through the steps that I've described. So the first one, remember, is to install the platform program. And it runs this wizard. So you'll have seen this kind of thing before. It's just a standard sort of installation wizard. And we've got to go through that and just click next as appropriate. There's a license to agree. So I'm agreeing that, and next again. Select installation folder. I recommend you go with the defaults here and also install for everyone. Next again. Okay, it's ready to install. Here we go. Okay, now it's done that. Now one thing that happened that you didn't see, because the screen capture software that I'm using doesn't get it, is that Windows asks me to confirm the installation. So you didn't see that, but watch out for that happening, because you've got to click yes for it to go ahead. So the first step is finished now, and once I click close here, it'll go on to the next step, which is to install BioEra, which is another wizard. So that's going to come up in a minute. So again, Windows asks me to agree the installation, but the screen capture didn't get that, so you didn't see it. So here's the wizard again. So again, it's the license to agree. I agree that. I strongly recommend you go with all the default offerings in this wizard. So just click next, destination folder default, next, ready to install. Here we go. Okay, that's finished now. So when I click next, when I click finish here in the wizard, it'll go on to the third step, which is to copy the files that are associated with the applications for BioEra. And that's going to be the last step. So here we go. Click finish there. You see in the black window a list of files that's going by. Those are the files that are being copied. Now at the end of it, you'll see, if everything's gone well, you should see the message successful installation. Press any key to continue. So I hit a key and the black window disappears, and now the software is installed. So if I go back to my desktop, I now have the icon for the Mind Body Training Tools software, which I can now run. So when you want to run a biofeedback session, the starting point is always the platform program. So here it is. This is the icon on the desktop. It's called Mind Body Training Tools. And to start it, I double click. And here's the user interface. So the platform program is just essentially a front end to the software, and it sort of manages and organizes all the different biofeedback applications within the suite. Now there's a tab or a button on the left hand side of this window, one for each biofeedback modality. Now there may be more buttons or tabs than you will actually need, but for example, if you wanted to run a muscle tension biofeedback session, you would click on the EMG tab, and then you can launch the application from there. But I'm not going to do that right now. That'll come later in other videos later on in the course. For now, I'm going to go back to the Setup tab, which is the tab that shows when you first start up the software. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to do before you first run a biofeedback session. And generally, you only need to do these things once. So I'm going to show you what they are. The first is to do with device setup. So here I am, I'm on the Setup tab. There's a button called Device Setup. So I'm clicking that, and what I get is this dialog. Essentially what this is about is allowing me to select what type of device I have for each of the different biofeedback parameters. So again, there are more parameters than you'll probably end up using. But let's say, for example, that you want to run an EMG or muscle tension biofeedback session. It's the first control here. So it's a combo box. Now, if you've rented, the device that you'll have is going to be a PhysioData GP8. So you would select that device there. And once you've done that, the software will remember it for next time. So you can click OK, and then you can go on to run your session. You never need to do that again, unless there's one thing, which is that there is another option. So I'll go back to this dialog. Now you may have noticed that there's an option on the list called Simulator. Now what this is about is the simulator allows you to try out the software without any biofeedback device connected. So you can play with the software without the encumbrance of sensors and whatnot. So that's quite a useful thing to do when you're first learning to use the software. So I'm going to leave that selected for now. I'm going to click OK, and again it will remember that setting until I change it. Right, now the next area that you need to set up before you first run a biofeedback session is to do with user and data storage options. So there's another button here on the Setup tab. I'm clicking that now, and I get another dialog. So what have we got here? So the first thing, what this is about is that the software will create a session data file every time that you run a biofeedback session. That's so that it can create a session report should you want to do that. So you have to nominate a place or a folder on your computer where it's going to save those files to. Now, because I've run the software before, I've already got a folder selected. It's in My Documents, but the first time you run the software, there'll be nothing selected, so you need to click this button to create or change the base folder, and it will open a standard Windows dialog box that allows you to select or create a folder. Now you can pick anywhere you like. The obvious choice is somewhere within your My Documents area, but like I say, it can be anywhere you like. I would strongly recommend not creating a folder within a systems area. So for example, don't create the folder within the program files folder on your C drive, because you might not have permission to write to that area. So beyond that, anywhere you like. Now, because I've already got somewhere selected, I'm just going to cancel out of that. Again, the software will remember your choice, so you only need to do that once. Now, the next option on this dialog is to do with users. Now, if you're the only person who's likely to use the biofeedback software on your computer, the obvious choice is to go for single user. But if you're going to share the biofeedback device with your friends and family, then you can check multi-user. You can go for the multi-user option, which means that you can then create named users, and you can select named users according to who's using the software, and the software will write the data for that user so that you can select. If you then want to go on and create a session report, you can select from your own data files, your own sessions. Okay, I'm going to just leave that on single user for now. The last option that I need to mention is to do with recording the data files. Now by default, the software will ask you, it will give you a message box offering you the choice of saving the session data file or not. Now, if you want to go with that option, that's fine, but you can also select save automatically, which means that it will just save the data file regardless. It won't ask you. It'll just automatically save it. So I'm going to leave it on the default setting, which is to ask the user every time. Then I'm going to select OK. So now I'm more or less good to go. I've set up the two areas that I need to set up before I can go on to run biofeedback sessions.